Captain Sarah Chen stared at the navigation display and rubbed her tired eyes. The numbers still looked wrong. Very wrong. Rodriguez, run the calculations again, she said to her chief engineer. Maria Rodriguez looked up from her tablet, her dark hair escaping from its ponytail. I've run them 4 times, Captain. We're definitely not where we're supposed to be. The bridge of the research vessel Perseverance hummed quietly around them. It was a small ship, built for deep space mineral surveys, not for whatever this was. Chen looked out the main viewport at the starfield that should have been familiar but wasn't. How far off course are we? Asked Dr. James Kim, the team's scientist. He pushed his glasses up his nose, a habit he'd had since college. Rodriguez winced. About 200 light years. The bridge fell silent except for the soft beeping of instruments. Chen had been commanding survey missions for 8 years, and she'd never seen anything like this. The experimental drive worked too well, Rodriguez continued. Instead of jumping us 50 light years to the mineral fields, it threw us way out here. I'm still figuring out what went wrong, Chen nodded slowly. They had volunteered to test the new faster-than-light drive, because the old chemical rockets took forever to reach the outer mining zones. The drive was supposed to cut their travel time from months to days. Instead, it had taken them somewhere completely unknown. Can you get us home? Chen asked. Working on it. Give me a few hours to understand what happened. Dr. Kim was studying his sensor readings. Captain, you might want to look at this. Chen walked over to his station. The sensors showed something massive ahead of them. Very massive. What am I looking at? I think it's artificial, Kim said quietly. The structure is too regular to be natural. And it's huge, maybe 50 kilometers across. Chen felt her stomach drop. Humans had never found signs of alien life despite decades of searching. They had always been alone in the universe as far as they knew. Are you sure it's artificial? Kim nodded. The metal content readings are off the charts. And look at this. He pointed to another display. I'm detecting multiple ships around it. Different designs, different sizes. This isn't just one structure. It's like a whole city in space. Rodriguez looked up from her repairs. Captain, I'm picking up radio signals. Lots of them. Different frequencies, different patterns. It's not random static. Chen's heart started beating faster. Can you decode any of it? Some of it seems to be basic mathematical sequences. Universal stuff. But there are also complex patterns that look like language. Multiple languages. The 3 humans looked at each other. They were scientists and engineers, not diplomats or soldiers. They were supposed to be mapping asteroid fields, not making first contact with aliens. How many ships are we talking about? Chen asked. Kim checked his sensors again. At least 30 that I can detect. Maybe more. They're all different shapes and sizes. Some are huge, bigger than anything we've ever built. Rodriguez stood up and walked to the main viewport. Captain, look at this. Chen and Kim joined her. In the distance, they could see lights. Lots of lights. Moving in organized patterns around a massive structure. Even from this distance, they could tell it was enormous. It's beautiful, Kim whispered. It's terrifying, Rodriguez added. Chen had to agree with both of them. The structure looked like nothing humans had ever imagined. It had flowing curves and sharp angles at the same time. Parts of it seemed to glow with their own light. Ships moved around it like insects around a flower. Are they aware of us? Chen asked. Kim checked his instruments. I don't think so. We're pretty far out and our ship is small. But if they have good sensors... As if summoned by his words, an alarm started beeping. Rodriguez ran back to her station. 3 ships just changed course, she said. They're heading our way. Chen felt her mouth go dry. How long until they reach us? At their current speed, maybe 20 minutes. And can we run? Rodriguez shook her head. The drive needs more time to recharge. And even if it was ready, I don't know if I can control where we end up. The 3 ships approaching them were unlike anything in human experience. One was long and thin like a needle. Another was round and covered in spikes. The third looked like it was made of crystal. They're slowing down, Kim reported. I think they want to talk. Chen's communication console crackled to life. The sounds that came out were definitely not human. They were musical, like singing, but also mechanical, like machinery. After a few moments, the sounds changed to something more familiar. Unknown vessel, this is Galactic Enforcement Patrol 7. You are in restricted space. State your origin and purpose. The voice was clearly artificial, translated by some kind of computer, but the meaning was clear. Chen took a deep breath and activated the communication system. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human vessel Perseverance. We are explorers from Earth. We are here by accident. There was a long pause. Then the voice came back, sounding confused. Human? Earth? These designations are not in our database. Please clarify your species and home system. Rodriguez whispered. They don't know about us. Chen spoke into the communicator again. We are from the Sol system, third planet. We call ourselves humans. We have never made contact with other intelligent species before. Another long pause. This time Chen could hear multiple voices talking in the background, though she couldn't understand the languages. Captain Chen, you are claiming to be from an unregistered system with an unregistered species. This is highly irregular. Prepare to be escorted to the Grand Galactic Trade Hub for processing. Processing? Chen asked. All new contact situations must be handled according to Galactic Council protocols. Do not attempt to flee or resist. Cooperation will ensure a smooth integration process. The three alien ships moved closer. They were clearly more advanced than the Perseverance. Their hulls were smooth and perfect with no visible seams or construction marks. They moved without any visible engines or exhaust. What's a Galactic Council? Kim wondered aloud. I guess we're about to find out, Chen replied. The crystal-like ship projected a beam that surrounded the Perseverance. Chen felt the ship jerk slightly as they were caught in some kind of tractor beam. We are now guiding you to the trade hub, the voice announced. Please remain calm. First contact procedures will begin upon arrival. Rodriguez stared at her instruments. Captain, they're pulling us toward that big structure. And I'm detecting hundreds more ships now. This place is like a major spaceport. As they got closer, the massive structure revealed more details. It was clearly artificial, with docking bays, communication arrays, and what looked like entire cities built into its surface. Ships of every imaginable design came and went constantly. How long has this been here? Kim asked quietly. Chen shook her head. I don't know, but it looks like it's been here for a very long time. The trade hub grew larger and larger as they approached. Chen realized it wasn't just a space station. It was more like a small planet completely covered in technology and teeming with activity. Captain, Rodriguez said, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. Chen couldn't help but smile at the reference despite their situation. They had set out to map some asteroids and ended up discovering that humans were not alone in the universe. Not even close. As their ship was guided into a docking bay, Chen wondered what they were about to learn about this galaxy they had stumbled into. She also wondered if Earth was ready for what was coming. The docking bay doors closed behind them with a sound like distant thunder. The docking bay was enormous. Chen estimated it could hold 20 ships the size of the Perseverance. The walls were covered in symbols that glowed softly, and the air shimmered with some kind of energy field. Atmosphere is breathable, Kim reported, checking his instruments. Oxygen levels are actually higher than Earth normal. Temperature is comfortable too, Rodriguez added. Whatever they use for life support, it works. Through the viewport, they could see various alien beings moving around the docking bay. Some walked on 2 legs like humans, others had 4 or 6 legs. One creature seemed to float without touching the ground. They all wore different types of clothing or equipment, but they all seemed to know what they were doing. They look so normal, Kim observed. I mean, they're aliens, but they're just going about their business like it's any other day. For them, it probably is, Chen replied. A chime sounded through the ship's communication system. The artificial voice from before spoke again. Captain Chen, please prepare for formal contact procedures. You and your crew will be escorted to the Integration Processing Center. Bring any official documents or records of your civilization. Chen looked at Rodriguez and Kim. Official documents? What are we supposed to bring? Our driver's licenses? Rodriguez laughed nervously. I've got my engineering certification. Think that counts? A section of the docking bay wall opened, and several figures approached their ship. The leader was tall and thin, with blue-green skin and 4 arms. Its clothing looked official with lots of badges and symbols. Behind it walked 2 other beings that looked completely different from each other, and from the leader. The leader stopped in front of their ship and spoke into a device that translated its words. I am Admiral Clixtor of the Galactic Enforcement. Corps, you will exit your vessel for processing. Chen activated the external speakers. Admiral, we're peaceful explorers. We're not trying to cause any trouble. All unregistered species cause trouble, Clixtor replied. It is the natural order. You will follow proper procedures. The 3 humans gathered their personal items and what few official Earth documents they had. Rodriguez grabbed her engineering tools. Kim took his scientific equipment, and Chen brought the ship's registration papers. The airlock opened with a hiss. Chen stepped out first, followed by her crew. The artificial gravity felt slightly different from their ship, and the air had a metallic taste. Admiral Clixtor towered over them. Up close, Chen could see that its skin had a pattern like scales, and its eyes were much larger than human eyes. When it spoke, its mouth revealed rows of small, sharp teeth. "You are very small," it observed. "Most intelligent species are larger. Are you certain you developed space travel independently?" "Pretty certain," Chen replied. "We built our own ships, developed our own technology." Clixtor made a sound that the translator rendered as disapproval. "Impossible. No species develops faster than light travel without Galactic Council guidance. You must have stolen or found abandoned technology." Rodriguez stepped forward. "Hey, wait a minute. We designed and built that drive ourselves. I can show you the blueprints." One of the other aliens, covered in what looked like fur, whispered something to Clixtor. The Admiral's expression grew more stern. "You will present your evidence to the assessment board. Follow me." They were led through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls showed holographic displays with information in dozens of different languages and symbols. Aliens of every description walked, rolled, or floated past them, most paying no attention to the humans. "This place is massive," Kim whispered. "How many species are represented here?" Clixtor overheard him. "The Galactic Council includes 47,000 member species. The trade hub serves as neutral ground for commerce and diplomacy between them." Chen tried to process that number. 47,000 different intelligent species. Earth's entire history suddenly felt very small. They entered a large room filled with floating screens and comfortable-looking chairs designed for various body types. Several aliens sat behind a curved desk, each looking very official and very bored. "Assessment board," Clixtor announced. "I present the humans of Sol 3, claiming independent development of faster-than-light travel." The alien in the center of the desk looked like a giant insect with jeweled eyes. When it spoke, its voice buzzed like electricity. "How long has your species possessed space travel?" "About 60 years for basic spaceflight," Chen answered. "We only developed faster-than-light capability recently." The buzzing grew louder. 60 years? Impossible. Standard development from first spaceflight to FTL takes a minimum of 800 years. With proper Galactic Council mentorship. "Well, we didn't have mentorship," Rodriguez said. "We figured it out ourselves." The third board member, who looked like a walking tree, rustled its leaves disapprovingly. "No species achieves FTL without guidance. The mathematical complexity alone requires centuries of careful instruction." Kim pulled out his tablet and showed them some equations. "Actually, we used a quantum tunneling approach based on theoretical work from our scientists. It's really not that complicated once you understand the principles." The board members looked at the tablet, then at each other. Their expressions suggested they were not happy with what they were seeing. "This is highly irregular," the insect buzzed. "Your technology appears functional, but your development timeline violates all known patterns of intelligent evolution." Admiral Clixtor stepped forward. "I recommend immediate placement in the Primitive Species Integration Program. 500 years of supervised development should bring them up to acceptable standards." 500 years? Chen couldn't hide her shock. "We're not primitive. We have advanced technology, complex societies, art, literature, science." "You have been spacefaring for only 60 years, the tree alien rustled. "You clearly lack the wisdom and experience necessary for galactic citizenship. The integration program will teach you proper behavior, efficient resource allocation, and respectful interaction protocols," Rodriguez muttered under her breath. "This is like being sent to remedial classes by aliens." The insect's jeweled eyes focused on her. "What did the small human say?" "She said, 'We're honored by your generous offer,'" Chen replied quickly. Clixtor made notes on a device. "You will be assigned quarters in the integration facility. Your education will begin immediately. First, you must learn the 17 basic laws of galactic conduct, followed by the 300 essential protocols for interspecies communication." "How long does that usually take?" Kim asked. "For most species, approximately 40 years. But humans appear to be particularly slow learners, so perhaps longer." The board members nodded in agreement. Chen realized they were completely serious. "What about our ship?" she asked. "It will be impounded for technological analysis," Clixtor replied. "We must understand how you achieved FTL without proper development sequences. Your drive may contain dangerous instabilities. Rodriguez's face turned red. There's nothing dangerous about our drive. I designed it myself and it works perfectly. No single individual can design FTL technology, the tree alien stated flatly. Such work requires teams of thousands working for decades under careful supervision. Well, I did it anyway, Rodriguez shot back. The board members exchanged looks again. The insect buzzed quietly to its companions in a language the translators couldn't handle. Finally, it spoke to the humans again. Your claims are being recorded for further analysis. You will be escorted to your temporary quarters. Orientation begins in one standard day cycle. As they were led from the room, Chen heard one of the board members saying something about another impossible species and increased security measures. The quarters they were assigned were comfortable, but clearly designed for long-term stays. The walls showed information about galactic history, proper deportment, and what appeared to be educational programs. Captain, Rodriguez said once they were alone, I don't like this. They're treating us like children who don't know how to use scissors safely. Kim was examining the educational materials. Look at this timeline. According to them, the average species takes 12,000 years to develop from first tool use to galactic citizenship. They think we're moving way too fast. Chen sat down heavily in one of the chairs. It automatically adjusted to her body shape, which was oddly unsettling. They think we're either lying or dangerous, she said. Maybe both. Are we dangerous? Kim asked. Chen looked at her crew. Rodriguez was already examining the room's technology with obvious curiosity. Kim was taking notes on everything he observed. They were explorers and scientists, not conquerors. I don't think so, she said. But apparently, doing things differently than expected makes us a problem. Outside their quarters, they could hear the sounds of the massive station continuing its business. Somewhere out there, 47,000 species were going about their daily lives according to rules and procedures developed over tens of thousands of years. And somehow, 3 humans from a tiny blue planet had managed to throw a wrench into the whole system just by showing up. Chen wondered what tomorrow's orientation would bring. She also wondered if they would ever see Earth again. The orientation session took place in a large amphitheater filled with beings from dozens of different species. Chen, Rodriguez, and Kim found themselves sitting between a group of crystalline creatures that chimed when they moved, and some furry beings that smelled like cinnamon. The lecturer was a tall, gray alien with 6 eyes and a voice that sounded like a computer reading a dictionary. Welcome to Basic Galactic Citizenship Level 1, it announced. Today we will cover proper resource allocation methodologies and why individual initiative is discouraged. Rodriguez raised her hand. Excuse me, but why is individual initiative discouraged? The lecturer's eyes all focused on her at once. Individual action leads to chaos and inefficiency. All significant decisions must be made by committee after proper consultation periods. How long are these consultation periods? Kim asked. For minor decisions, typically 6 months. For major decisions, anywhere from 5 to 50 years, depending on the complexity and number of affected parties. Chen felt her jaw drop. 50 years to make a decision? The Galactic Council once spent 200 years deciding whether to change the color of the station's emergency lighting, the lecturer said proudly. This ensured that all stakeholders had adequate time to voice their concerns. A crystalline being next to them chimed approvingly. One of the furry creatures nodded enthusiastically. What if there's an emergency? Rodriguez asked. All emergencies are handled by the Emergency Response Protocol Committee, which convenes within 72 hours to begin the emergency assessment process. 72 hours? Chen couldn't help herself. What if people are dying? The lecturer looked confused. Dying is a natural process. It cannot be prevented by hasty decision-making. After the orientation session, the humans were given a tour of the integration facility. Their guide was a young alien named Zix who looked like a walking jellyfish with arms. Don't mind the lectures, Zix said quietly. They're the same speeches they've been giving for thousands of years. Most of us just tune them out. How long have you been here? Kim asked. Only about 60 years. My species was integrated when I was young. We had the terrible habit of inventing new things without proper authorization. Rodriguez perked up. What kind of things? Oh, improvements to existing technology mostly. Faster communication systems, more efficient energy production, better medical treatments, very disruptive behavior. That sounds like progress to me, Chen said. Six's jellyfish body rippled with what might have been laughter. That's exactly the kind of thinking they're trying to correct. Progress without proper planning and committee approval causes instability. They passed through a section of the facility that looked like a mall, but everything seemed old and unchanged. The same designs, the same technology, the same layout that had probably been there for centuries. How often do things change around here? Kim asked. Change? Zix looked puzzled. Why would things change? This design was approved by the Architectural Standards Committee 3,000 years ago. It meets all requirements for functionality and efficiency. Rodriguez pointed to an information display that was flickering and obviously malfunctioning. What about that? It's not working properly. Yes, that's been broken for about 50 years. The Repair Authorization Committee is still reviewing the work order. 50 years? Rodriguez walked over to the display and looked at it for a moment. Then she pulled out her multi-tool and popped off the back panel. This is just a loose connection. Stop! Zix cried. You can't just fix things. That requires proper authorization. But Rodriguez had already found the problem. She tightened a connection and pressed a small reset button. The display immediately stopped flickering and began showing clear, bright information. There, she said, replacing the panel. Fixed. Zix stared at the now working display in horror. But the work order, the committee approval, the safety assessment, it was just a loose wire, Rodriguez explained. Basic maintenance. Any first-year engineering student could have fixed it. A crowd of aliens had gathered to stare at the functioning display. Some of them seemed amazed, others appeared frightened. She made it work, one of them whispered. Without authorization. Another added nervously. Within an hour, word had spread throughout the facility. The humans were taken to a meeting with the facility administrator, a pompous alien that looked like a purple octopus wearing a business suit. We understand there was an unauthorized repair incident, the administrator said sternly. It was hardly an incident, Chen replied. My engineer fixed a broken display. The display was scheduled for committee review. The repair process could have taken only 18 more months. Rodriguez threw her hands up in exasperation. 18 months to tighten a screw? All repairs must follow proper procedures. Your unauthorized action has disrupted the entire maintenance schedule. How? Kim asked reasonably. The display works now. Isn't that better than having it broken? The administrator's tentacles writhed with agitation. Better, worse. These are not relevant concepts. What matters is following established procedures. That evening, the humans were confined to their quarters while the administration reviewed the situation. They had access to the Galactic Information Network, which Chen discovered was slower than the dial-up internet she had used as a teenager. This is incredible, Kim said, reading through historical records. According to this, some of these civilizations have had the same government systems for 20,000 years. No changes, no improvements, no evolution. Look at this, Rodriguez said from her terminal. They have a faster-than-light communication system, but it's limited to official government use only. Everyone else has to wait days for messages to be delivered by courier ships. Why? Chen asked. Because the Communication Regulation Committee decided that instant communication would lead to hasty decision-making and social instability. Chen shook her head in disbelief. They have technology that could solve problems instantly, but they choose not to use it. Gets worse, Rodriguez continued. Their medical system. They have machines that can cure most diseases, but treatment requires approval from the Medical Ethics Board, which meets once per month and has a backlog of 3 years. People die waiting for treatment? Kim asked. Apparently. But the system ensures that all treatments are properly evaluated for long-term societal impact. Chen felt sick. This isn't advanced civilization. This is bureaucracy run completely insane. A chime at their door interrupted them. Six entered, looking nervous and excited at the same time. I brought friends, he said quietly. They want to meet you. Behind him came a small group of young aliens from various species. They all looked curious and slightly rebellious. We heard about the display, said one of them, a reptilian being with bright orange scales. We want to know how you did it. You just fixed it, said another, who appeared to be made of living metal, without permissions or committees or assessments. Rodriguez grinned. It was easy. Want me to show you how basic electronics work? For the next several hours, the humans found themselves teaching an impromptu engineering class. Rodriguez showed them how to diagnose and repair simple problems. Kim explained scientific methods and hypothesis testing. Chen talked about leadership and decision-making in crisis situations. On our world, Chen explained, when something is broken, we fix it. When there's a problem, we solve it. We don't wait for someone else to give us permission. But what if you make mistakes? Asked the orange-scaled alien. Then we learn from them and do better next time, Kim replied. Mistakes are how we improve. The young aliens looked at each other with expressions that clearly said this was the most revolutionary thing they had ever heard. You're saying we could just try things? Asked the metal being. Without waiting for approval? That's how progress works, Rodriguez said. You see a problem, you think of a solution, you test it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, you try something else. This is dangerous thinking, Zix warned, but he didn't seem upset about it. The administrators would be very angry if they knew we were talking about this. Maybe, Chen said, but is it more dangerous than having a civilization that can't fix a broken display for 50 years? The young aliens stayed until late into the night, asking questions about human technology, human society, and human ways of thinking. When they finally left, they were carrying sketches and notes and ideas that had never occurred to them before. Captain, Rodriguez said after they were gone, I think we might be causing more disruption than the administrators realize. Good, Chen replied. Maybe this place needs some disruption. Outside their window, the massive trade hub continued its ancient, unchanging routine. But somewhere in the facility, young minds were beginning to wonder why things had to stay the same forever. And in their quarters, 3 humans from a small blue planet were discovering that sometimes the most advanced civilizations were the ones that had forgotten how to grow. Within a week, everything started going wrong for the Galactic Council, and it all traced back to 3 humans who kept fixing things. It started small. The air recycling system in Section 7 had been operating at 60% efficiency for 8 years, while waiting for the Environmental Systems Committee to approve a repair budget. Rodriguez took one look at it during a maintenance tour and asked why they didn't just clean the filters. Clean the filters? The maintenance supervisor, a slug-like being named Gorth, looked confused. The filters are cleaned according to the schedule approved by the Facility Maintenance Board. When was the last cleaning? Rodriguez asked. 17 months ago. The next cleaning is scheduled for 6 months from now. Rodriguez stared at him. The filters should be cleaned every 2 weeks, not every 2 years. That would require changing the approved maintenance schedule. Then change it. Gorth recoiled as if she had suggested something obscene. I cannot change approved schedules. That would require committee review, impact assessment, budget reallocation requests. How long would that take? Only 4 or 5 years, assuming the paperwork is filed correctly. Rodriguez looked at the clogged, filthy filters that were choking the life support system. Then she looked at Gorth. Then she started taking the filters out. What are you doing? Gorth cried. Cleaning them. Do you have a wash station around here? But you can't just clean them. It's not scheduled. Watch me. Word of the illegal filter cleaning incident spread through the station's communication networks faster than official news had ever traveled. Within hours, aliens from across the trade hub were talking about the humans who ignored procedures and just did things. The young aliens who had been secretly meeting with the humans started experimenting with their own unauthorized improvements. A group of them figured out how to speed up the data transmission systems by bypassing unnecessary security checks. Another group reorganized a storage area to improve efficiency by 30%. Admiral Clixtor was not pleased. These humans are a virus, he told the Emergency Council session that convened to address the growing problem. They spread chaos and disruption wherever they go. The disruption appears to be improving system efficiency, noted Counselor Vex, a floating brain in a crystalline case. Efficiency is not the goal. Clixtor's forearms gestured wildly. Stability is the goal. Order is the goal. When beings start making unauthorized changes, the entire system breaks down. But systems are breaking down anyway, observed Counselor Thrax, who looked like a walking tree. The maintenance backlogs alone are causing more failures than we have ever seen. That is normal and expected degradation according to approved aging curves, Clixtor insisted. What the humans are doing is unpredictable and dangerous. Meanwhile, the humans had been moved to a more secure section of the integration facility. Their communications were monitored, their movements were restricted, and they were no longer allowed to participate in facility tours. This lasted exactly 1 day before the crisis happened. The crisis began at 0347 station time when the primary power distribution node for the entire trade hub suffered a cascade failure. This was not unusual. The system failed every few months due to its age and poor maintenance. What was unusual was that the backup systems also failed, leaving 15 million beings on the station without power. The Emergency Response Protocol Committee was activated and began its standard procedures. First, they had to verify that an emergency actually existed. This took 6 hours. Then they had to notify all relevant department heads and schedule an emergency planning session. This took another 4 hours. By the time the committee actually met to discuss the problem, the trade hub had been without power for 12 hours. Life support was running on emergency batteries that were designed to last 24 hours. In the integration facility, the humans sat in their darkened quarters and listened to the chaos outside. "How long do you think it will take them to fix it?" Kim asked. "At the rate they work." Rodriguez checked her watch. "I'd say 6 months, assuming they can agree on what the problem is." "People are going to die," Chen said grimly. Through their door, they could hear confused alien voices, mechanical failures, and what sounded like several arguments between administrators about whose responsibility it was to handle power failures. Then their door opened. Zix and his group of young aliens stood there with emergency lights. "We need your help," Zix said simply. "We're confined to quarters," Chen pointed out. "The containment locks are electronic," said the orange-scaled alien whose name was Crix. "No power, no locks. The administrators are having emergency meetings," added the metallic, being called Flux. "They're arguing about which committee has authority over power failures during third shift on odd-numbered days. "What? How bad is it out there?" Rodriguez asked. "Life support is failing in the outer sections," Zix reported. "Medical equipment is shutting down. The traffic control system is down, so ships can't dock or leave safely." "And the repair estimate?" "The Electrical Systems Committee says it will take 2 weeks just to assess the damage. Actual repairs could take months." Chen looked at her crew. Rodriguez was already grabbing her tools. Kim was putting on his shoes. "This is highly illegal," Chen announced. "We're supposed to stay in our quarters and wait for proper authorization." "Yes," Rodriguez agreed, heading for the door. "So let's go fix their power grid." The trade hub without power was a maze of darkness and confusion. Emergency lighting provided dim illumination in main corridors, but most areas were completely dark. The humans and their alien helpers had to navigate by flashlight. "Where's the main power distribution center?" Rodriguez asked. "Level 847 Section Gamma," Flux replied. "But it's restricted to authorized personnel only. Tonight." "We're all authorized," Chen said. The power distribution center was a vast chamber filled with machinery that looked like it had been designed by a committee and built by another committee with no communication between them. Cables ran in all directions with no apparent organization. Control panels were scattered randomly around the room. "This is a nightmare," Rodriguez muttered, shining her light around the space. "How does this even work when it's working?" "Very poorly," Crix admitted. "It fails at least once a month." "Every month?" Kim stared at him. "And they just accept that?" "The Electrical Maintenance Board is working on a long-term solution," Zix explained. "They expect to have a preliminary report ready in 8 years. Rodriguez was already tracing cables and checking connections. "I found the problem. Actually, I found about 12 problems. This whole system is held together with good luck and prayer. Can you fix it?" Chen asked. "I can get power restored, but it's going to take some creative engineering, and we're going to need help." Over the next several hours, the humans organized the young aliens into work crews. Rodriguez directed the electrical repairs while explaining basic power distribution principles. Kim set up a triage system for the most critical systems. Chen coordinated between the different groups and kept everyone focused on the most important tasks. They bypassed safety systems that had been installed by committees but never properly integrated. They rerouted power around damaged sections using portable cables. They cleaned connections that hadn't been maintained in decades. Most importantly, they made decisions quickly and implemented them immediately. "Why are we checking with each other instead of forming a committee?" Flux asked at one point. "Because the station is going to lose life support in 6 hours," Rodriguez replied, splicing cables. "We don't have time for proper procedures." "But what if we make mistakes?" "Then we fix them." That's what engineers do. At 14:30 station time, the lights came back on. Throughout the trade hub, 15 million beings breathed sighs of relief as power was restored to life support, medical equipment, and traffic control systems. The humans and their helpers had restored power to the entire station in 18 hours. The Emergency Response Protocol Committee was still meeting to discuss the formation of a subcommittee to evaluate the situation. Admiral Clixtor arrived at the power distribution center with a squad of security officers just as the last repairs were being completed. "This is completely unauthorized," he shouted. These humans were confined to quarters. These young citizens had no authority to participate in emergency repairs. "Should we have let everyone die instead?" Chen asked calmly. "That is not the point. Procedures exist for a reason. Order must be maintained." Rodriguez was putting away her tools. "Your procedures would have taken weeks. People would have died. Death is preferable to chaos," Clixtor declared. The young aliens looked at each other in shock. Even Zix seemed stunned by the Admiral's statement. "Did he just say that death is better than fixing things?" Crix whispered. "I think he did," Flux replied. Chen stepped forward to face Admiral Clixtor. "Admiral, with respect, that's insane. You have a civilization that would rather die than allow people to solve problems without permission. We have a stable civilization that has lasted 40,000 years. You have a stagnant civilization that can't fix a power failure," Rodriguez shot back. Clixtor's forearms trembled with rage. "These humans will be placed in maximum security containment. The young citizens who helped them will be re-educated. This rebellion ends now." But as he spoke, aliens throughout the trade hub were talking. They were sharing stories about the impossible humans. The maximum security containment lasted exactly 3 days before the trade hub faced its biggest crisis in 10,000 years. It started when the main navigation computer began calculating landing vectors for incoming ships incorrectly. Ships were being directed to docking bays that were already occupied, or worse, into the station's structure itself. 3 near collisions in 1 day caused the Traffic Control Authority to shut down all incoming and outgoing flights. This was a problem. The trade hub processed over 10,000 ship movements per day. With traffic stopped, ships began backing up in holding patterns around the station. Within hours, there were thousands of vessels waiting for permission to dock or leave. The Computer Systems Emergency Committee was activated, but their first meeting was postponed because the committee chairman was stuck on an incoming cargo ship that couldn't dock. "How long until we can hold the emergency meeting?" asked Acting Chairman Blex, a spider-like alien with 8 arms. "The chairman's ship is number 4847 in the landing queue," reported the Deputy Traffic Coordinator. "At current processing rates, approximately 6 months. 6 months. Blex's 8 arms trembled. "We can't wait 6 months to begin addressing this crisis." "Perhaps we could hold the meeting without the chairman," suggested Sub-Administrator Gorth. The committee members looked at each other in horror. Hold a meeting without the designated chairman? The very idea was shocking. "That would violate Protocol 847B, pointed out Legal Advisor Krenth. "All emergency committees must be chaired by their designated chairman or an officially appointed substitute." "How long does it take to appoint a substitute?" Blex asked. "The Substitute Appointment Board meets quarterly. The next meeting is in 2 months. Meanwhile, the situation was getting worse. Ships in the holding patterns were running low on fuel and supplies. Several smaller vessels had already declared emergency status. The cargo ships couldn't unload, which meant food and medical supplies weren't reaching the station. In their maximum security cell, the humans watched news reports of the growing crisis on their small monitor. "The navigation computer problem?" Rodriguez said. "That's probably just a corrupted database. An hour's work, maybe 2. But they can't fix it because their chairman is stuck in traffic," Kim observed. "Which exists because they can't fix the computer. It's a perfect circle of bureaucratic paralysis." Chen was pacing in the small space. "How many people are going to die while they wait for permission to save themselves?" Their cell door opened unexpectedly. Zix entered, followed by Crix, Flux, and about 30 other young aliens. "How did you get in here?" Chen asked. "Security guards are stuck on incoming ships," Zix explained. "Most of the senior administrators are also stuck in traffic. The only people left running the station are junior staff and maintenance workers. And us," added Crix with something that might have been a grin. "We've been talking," Flux continued. "All of us. Young beings from dozens of species. We've been sharing the things you taught us about fixing problems instead of forming committees. And we want to learn more, said a new voice. Chen turned to see a massive alien that looked like a walking boulder. I'm Granic's Senior Maintenance Coordinator. I've been watching what you three accomplished, and I think it's time this station had some real repairs. Rodriguez's eyes lit up. You want us to fix the navigation computer? I want you to fix everything, Granix rumbled. This station has been falling apart for centuries because we're not allowed to maintain it properly. But with most of the administrators stuck in traffic, nobody's around to stop us. This is mutiny, Chen pointed out. No, Granix corrected. This is maintenance. Long overdue maintenance. The next 18 hours became known as the Great Repair. Led by the humans and organized by Granix, hundreds of young aliens throughout the trade hub began fixing everything that was broken. They fixed the navigation computer first. Rodriguez traced the problem to a memory module that had been corrupted for months. The Computer Maintenance Committee had been planning to replace it eventually, but the replacement module was stuck in a bureaucratic approval process that had already taken 2 years. Why didn't anyone just swap in a new module? Rodriguez asked as she installed a replacement from the spare parts inventory. Because the inventory management system requires Form 2847C to release any parts costing more than 50 credits, Granix explained. And Form 2847C requires committee approval? 3 committees, actually. The Parts Authorization Board, the Expense Validation Committee, and the Resource Allocation Oversight Panel. Rodriguez held up the module. This costs 12 credits, yes. But regulations require that all computer components be treated as high-value items regardless of actual cost. That's insane. That's regulations. While Rodriguez worked on the computer, Kim organized teams to tackle the backlog of medical emergencies. They discovered that the station's hospitals had been operating at half capacity for years because the Patient Care Optimization Committee couldn't decide on the most efficient room assignments. We have a hospital with 500 beds, Dr. Tresh, the chief medical officer, explained to Kim, but we're only allowed to use 250 of them. Why? The other 250 are reserved for the projected increase in patients that the hospital planning board calculated might occur over the next century. Kim stared at him. You're letting people die today to save room for hypothetical patients 100 years from now? It ensures optimal resource allocation. Kim started opening the unused rooms. Within hours, every alien who had been waiting for medical treatment was receiving care. Chen focused on the traffic control crisis. She discovered that the massive backup of ships existed primarily because traffic controllers were required to get supervisor approval for every landing assignment. Where are the supervisors? She asked the head traffic controller, a nervous alien named Pixel. Stuck on incoming ships, Pixel replied. We can't authorize any landings without supervisor approval, but the supervisors can't reach the station because we can't authorize their landings. Who made this rule? The Traffic Safety Committee about 50 years ago. They were concerned about unauthorized landing assignments. Has there ever been a problem with unauthorized landing assignments? Pixel looked confused. What do you mean? Has anyone ever made a bad landing assignment? Crashed a ship or caused an accident? Well, no, traffic controllers are trained professionals. We know how to assign landing bays safely. Then why do you need supervisor approval? Because it's the rule. Chen looked at the thousands of ships visible through the traffic control center's windows. Pixel, what would happen if you just started assigning landings without approval? I would be disciplined for violating protocols. And if you don't assign landings, people will die from lack of supplies and medical care. Which do you think is worse? Pixel stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned to his console and began assigning landing bays to the waiting ships. Throughout the station, similar scenes were playing out. Young aliens were discovering that most of their problems had simple solutions that had been made complicated by decades of bureaucratic overlay. They cleaned air filters that hadn't been maintained in years. They repaired communication systems by replacing obviously broken components. They reorganized storage areas using basic common sense instead of the optimal storage configuration protocol that had been developed by committee 40 years earlier. Most importantly, they started communicating with each other directly instead of routing all information through official channels that took days to process simple messages. The revolution wasn't violent or dramatic. It was practical and efficient. Aliens who had spent their entire lives waiting for permission to solve problems suddenly discovered that they could just solve them. Admiral Clix Tor, who had finally made it back to the station on one of the first ships to dock after traffic resumed, was furious. "This is chaos," he declared to the emergency assembly of available administrators. "These unauthorized repairs have disrupted the entire operational framework of the station." "The station is working better than it has in decades," Granix pointed out. "That is not the point. Order has been abandoned. Protocols have been violated. The humans must be eliminated before they cause further damage." "Actually," said Counselor Vex, who had been monitoring the situation remotely, "the humans appear to have solved several problems that we have been unable to address for years. Problems that were being handled through proper channels. Proper channels that were taking decades to produce no results," Counselor Thrax added. "Perhaps we should consider whether our methods need updating." Clixtor's forearms gestured wildly. "Updating? Our methods have maintained galactic stability for 40,000 years. 40,000 years of stagnation," said a new voice. Everyone turned to see Zix standing in the doorway with dozens of other young aliens. "We've been reviewing the historical records," he continued. "For the last 20,000 years, nothing has changed. No new technologies, no improved methods, no solutions to ongoing problems. We've been so focused on maintaining stability that we forgot how to grow." "Growth is dangerous," Clixtor insisted. "Growth leads to chaos and